Right now, someone in your life is shaping you without waking you from your sleep. Not because they are smarter, not because they are stronger, but because they have learned how you process things, what you value, what you would never do, and they use that knowledge quietly. And let me tell you this now, because this is the most important part of this video. You probably already know who that person is. A face just appeared in your mind. Hold on to that face. Because by the time you reach the end of this video, you will understand exactly what that face has been doing to you, how long it has been doing it, and why you couldn't see it for so long. This is not self-improvement content. I am not talking about healing, not about forgiveness either. This is psychology. Cold, precise. Structural psychology Hervey Cleckley spent decades studying the psychological makeup of people who advance through the world by managing others. And what he found was not what most people expected, because manipulators don't look like monsters. They look like friends. They look like lovers. They look like the person in the room you trust most. That is the weapon. That has always been the weapon. And if you don't learn to see it, you will spend the rest of your life pouring yourself into people who are using you while smiling. So pay attention here, because once you see what you are about to learn, you will see it everywhere. The first sign is so subtle that most people never notice it, and those who do notice it usually blame themselves. And it is this. After every conversation, they make you feel like you were slightly in the wrong. Not with words, not with accusations, just with a pause, a look, a single question like, "Are you sure about that?" And in that moment, with no logical reason, you find yourself feeling the need to defend yourself, as if you said something wrong, as if you need to explain yourself. And this is not an accident. This is a technique. Cleckley called it manufactured doubt. And it is one of the most fundamental tools a manipulator uses to keep you off balance. Because a person who is constantly second-guessing themselves can never see the person making them doubt clearly enough. Now, think about the people in your life. Is there someone who consistently leaves you feeling slightly confused, slightly inadequate after a conversation? Someone who, no matter what you do, no matter how well you perform, plants a small seed of insecurity in you before they leave. If your answer is yes, you are not imagining it, you are not too sensitive, you are being managed. The second sign is what most people mistake for love. They read it as attention, they interpret it as loyalty, but it is not. This is attention control. The person in your life does not give you their presence freely. They offer it like a reward and withdraw it like a punishment. And they do it so smoothly and so consistently that you begin unconsciously reorganizing all of your behavior around regaining that attention. You start becoming quieter, smaller, easier, and all of this happens long before you realize a punishment has been administered. Cleckley documented this pattern in dozens of cases, and the conclusion he reached was as simple as it was shattering. The person in a relationship who controls emotional warmth controls everything without ever having to demand anything. Does their mood set the temperature of the room? Does their silence make you anxious? Does their approval feel like oxygen? If so, what you are looking for is not love. This is conditioning. The third sign is what Cleckley called strategic vulnerability. And this is the one that fools even intelligent people, because this person is not always cold, not always distant. Sometimes they come to you with pain that feels real, with vulnerability. And in that moment, a door opens inside you, your defenses drop, your empathy engages, and suddenly you are no longer thinking about what they have done to you, but about how you can help them. This is not an accident. This is architecture. The manipulator has long since learned that your compassion is a point of entry. Rather than breaking the door down, they knock gently and let you open it yourself. And in every display of vulnerability, they are not asking for help. They are resetting the balance, reminding you that you care about them far more than they care about you. The fourth sign is the one that will disturb you most if you are honest with yourself. It is the way they edit your reality, not with lies, but with selective truth. They highlight certain things and conceal certain details, and over time the version they present to you begins to feel like the only real version. You begin to distrust your own memory, You say, maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe I overreacted. But what Cleckley understood, and what so many people never grasp, is this. Your perception was not the problem. Your perception was correct. What happened was that someone spent months, years, convincing you that you were wrong every time you saw clearly. And this is not confusion. This is erosion, slow and patient, until the version they constructed becomes indistinguishable from what you actually lived. The fifth sign is felt not in your mind, but in your body. The tension that appears before a certain conversation, the tightening in your shoulders when you hear that name, the habit of rehearsing inside your head before you say what you want to say. This is not anxiety. This is your nervous system, recognizing a threat that your conscious mind is trying to ignore. Cleckley wrote that the body keeps a record of danger that the mind is often not yet ready to accept. And if your body is sounding an alarm while your mind is immediately trying to explain why that person is actually not dangerous, that gap between the two is precisely where manipulation lives. The sixth sign is one I call the invisible debt. This person keeps a ledger in their mind. You cannot see it, but they fill it meticulously. Every favor they did for you, every sacrifice, every moment of patience is recorded. And they use this ledger not to request gratitude, but to create obligation. Do you want to leave? Remember everything I did for you. Do you want to set a boundary? Remember what I've been through. This is debt manipulation, and it is so effective because it uses your own sense of fairness against you. You believe in reciprocity. You believe in justice. And the manipulator discovered exactly that and turned it into a lever. And the most chilling finding, Cleckley noted, was this. The manipulator never actually wants the debt repaid, because if the debt is paid, the leverage disappears. So they keep giving, enough to grow the ledger, enough to keep you under an account. You can never fully close. The seventh sign is silence, but not the kind of silence two people share comfortably. This is armed silence. The silence that comes immediately after you set a boundary, after you do something independently, after you say a certain thing, this person goes quiet, and in that silence you feel their disappointment, their anger, their withdrawal, as if you can actually hear it so clearly that you immediately step back, you apologize, you explain yourself, and when the silence ends, you feel relieved. But what just happened was not relief. You were just trained. You learned once again that independence has a price, and your nervous system will do everything it can next time to avoid paying that price. Cleckley wrote that silence used as punishment is far more effective than an open threat because the prisoner builds the walls of the cage inside. Their own mind, the eighth sign, is the least talked about in this video. And if you recognize it, please comment, because it is almost never named. It is this. They secretly welcome your failures and conditionally receive your successes. In your difficult periods, you sense beneath their sympathy a faint relief. You cannot show it, you cannot prove it, but you feel it. That small warmth from them while you are struggling, that slight shift in their energy when you share bad news, and when things go well, the congratulations always come with a but, a qualification, a seed of doubt. This is not support. This is management. This person needs to keep you at a certain level, confident enough to be useful to them, insecure enough to remain dependent on them. Cleckley called this calibrated erosion, and it may be the most ruthless form of control, because while wearing the costume of the relationship you want, it silently prevents you from ever fully becoming the person you are meant to be. And here is where everything changes. Because the ninth sign is not something done to you. It is something you do to yourself after staying with this person long enough. And this is the heaviest thing I will say in this video after a while. You begin to manipulate yourself on their behalf. You begin to minimize your needs before you even voice them. You stop trying to justify your feelings inside yourself. You defend them before you can criticize them. You have internalized the manipulator so completely that they no longer even need to be present to limit you. You do it automatically. You have become the guardian of your own mind. And most people who finally manage to leave this relationship discover this. The hardest part was not leaving. The hardest part was silencing that voice inside their head, the one that sounded like them. That was the real damage, not what they told you, but what you began telling yourself. And here is exactly where you now stand. What Cleckley's research shows us, again and again, is this. The moment you can put a name to the pattern loses half its power. Because manipulation relies on invisibility, it relies on you feeling its effects but not understanding why. It relies on you blaming yourself for a pain someone else constructed. And the moment you can say, I see what is happening here, this is not my confusion, this is their construction, everything changes. Not because they change, they will not, but because you change. The way you see them changes. The way you respond to them changes. The way you calculate what closeness with them costs you changes. You stop being raw material. But I need to be clear here because this is where most people make the critical mistake. Seeing the pattern is not enough. Naming the signs is not enough. Because knowledge without behavioral change is just a more sophisticated form of pain. You can know someone is manipulating you and still allow it. You can name every technique and still find yourself apologizing at 2 a.m. for something you never did. Knowledge must become identity. You need to move from being the person who understands manipulation to being the person who is psychologically inaccessible to it. Cleckley spent years studying not only manipulators, but their targets, and what he found was this. The targets were not weak or naive or broken. On the contrary, they were usually the most empathetic, the most loyal, the most honest people in the room, and it was precisely those qualities that were used as entry points. Your empathy is a door, your loyalty is a lever, your honesty is a tool in someone else's hands. And until you build conscious boundaries around your most valuable qualities, because those are the ones most targeted, you will remain accessible. Psychological inaccessibility does not look cold. It does not look closed. It looks like someone who listens without immediately trying to fix things, someone who observes before reacting, someone who feels before immediately disclosing, someone who gives warmth but does not scatter it, someone who requires evidence before extending trust, someone who, when they feel that familiar tension in their shoulders, that body memory, goes quieter. Rather than suppressing it with rationalization, they stop. They watch because the most powerful response to a manipulator is not confrontation, not exposure, not revenge. It is clear perception. Seeing that person without the filter of who you hope they are, and making decisions from that clarity. From truth rather than hope. And when that clarity comes, when you see the pattern as it actually is, grief comes first. Because what is being mourned is the version of that person you constructed in your mind, the version that would have been possible if they had just been slightly different. That grief is real and its weight deserves respect. But beneath it, if you sit with it long enough, you find something harder, something cold and clean and certain. The understanding that this was never about you, your qualities, your failures, your reactions. None of them were the variable. You were the material. They were the sculptor. And the sculpture they made was their own power. This awareness is not a wound. This awareness is a weapon when you understand that you were never the problem, that your sensitivity and your loyalty were not flaws that attracted a predator, but qualities a predator identified and chose to exploit. You stop trying to fix yourself. You stop trying to be someone different to get a different outcome, and you begin asking the only question that matters. What am I going to do with this knowledge? The answer Cleckley returned to again and again is this: you make clarity a practice. You stop allowing what you want someone to be to override what they have consistently shown you they are. You stop negotiating with evidence. You stop extending unearned trust just because withdrawing it feels rude. You become the observer of your own life, and you look at behavior as data, patterns as conclusions, and conclusions not as wounds, but as the ground from which decisions are made. And I will say something here that most people won't, because it does not offer a satisfying ending. Some of the people who manipulated you will never know it. They are operating from their own damage, their own conditioning that does not make what happened acceptable. It makes it understandable. And understanding is not the same as forgiving, nor is it opening the door to continued access. You can fully understand someone and still close the door. You can feel compassion for the wound that created the weapon and still refuse to be the target. If Cleckley's work teaches us one thing, it is this: the deepest act of self-respect is not exposing those who used you. It is becoming someone who cannot be used in the same way. Again, not because you hardened, but because you became precise. You learned the structure of this damage and rebuilt yourself around it, not as a defense, but as an evolution. There is a reason you are watching this video. Something inside you recognized these patterns before they were put into words. Something in your body knew before your mind was ready, and now you have a language for it. Now you have a map. The only question is whether you will use it, whether you will let this clarity guide your next steps, whether you will look at your relationships now with new eyes, not paranoid eyes, not closed eyes, but honest eyes. Eyes that see people as they are and love them if they deserve it and leave them if they do not. This is not hardness, this is health. And it begins the moment you decide that your perception of reality is not open to negotiation, that the tension in your body is data and not drama, that the patterns you see are real and not imagined, and that you, from this point forward, are not someone who will be quietly left behind.